One F-150 owner ignored a $15 part. 6 weeks later, his engine was scrap metal. Today, we're covering the 15 mistakes that quietly destroy Ford engines, transmissions, and wallets. By the end of this list, you'll know exactly which one you're guilty of right now. Mistake number 1. Skipping oil changes. This is the one mechanics see the most, and it's the one that hurts the most, because it's completely avoidable. A 2019 F-15. With a 3.5 EcoBoost came into a shop in Ohio with 96,000 miles on it. The owner said the truck felt sluggish. When the tech pulled the plug, almost nothing came out. What did come out looked like tar? The filter was crushed in on itself from oil starvation. Inside, the bearings were shot and the cam had visible scoring. Total damage, just over $4,800. The fix that would have prevented all of it costs about $60. Here's what actually happens when oil gets old. It stops being a lubricant and starts being an abrasive. Fuel dilution and moisture turn it acidic. That acid pits your cam lobes and bearings overnight. Every cold start after that grinds metal on metal. The rule is simple: 5,000 miles, full synthetic, no exceptions. Use Motorcraft or a quality filter like Wix. The bargain filters collapse internally and starve your top end. Check your dipstick every couple weeks. Don't wait for a warning light, because by the time it comes on, the damage is usually already done. Mistake number 2. Mixing coolant types. This one is silent. No smoke, no noise, just corrosion eating your engine from the inside until it overheats out of nowhere. Take a 2015 Ford Explorer that came in with the temp gauge climbing on the highway. The owner said he'd topped it off a few weeks earlier. When the cap came off, the coolant was bright green, but Ford's factory fill is orange. Mixing the two turns the coolant into a thick, rust-colored sludge that clogs everything it touches. That truck needed a new water pump, a new heater core, and eventually a head gasket. Total bill, close to $3,000. Ford coolant is engineered chemistry, not colored water. The additive packages protect aluminum from corrosion, but only if you don't cross-contaminate them. Mixing types cancels out those corrosion inhibitors and creates buildup that chokes tiny passages, especially in turbocharged engines. Flush your system every 5 years or 60,000 miles using Ford-approved coolant and distilled water, never tap water, because the minerals in it turn into scale. Check the overflow bottle monthly. If it looks rusty or cloudy, don't wait. Flush it. Mistake number 3. Trusting lifetime transmission fluid. Lifetime of what exactly? Because in the real world, it usually means the lifetime of the transmission, and that lifetime ends early. A 2016 F-150 rolled in with 138,000 miles and 0 transmission service records. It was shifting hard and hesitating between gears. When the pan came off, the fluid was almost black, and the magnet was caked in metal shavings. That transmission needed a full rebuild. Over $4,000. Transmission fluid isn't magic. It's oil with additives that clean, cool, and lubricate. Every shift creates microscopic clutch debris, and heat slowly cooks the additives out. Somewhere around 60 to 80,000 miles, that fluid can't hold pressure the way it needs to. Change the fluid and filter every 60 to 80,000 miles using Mercon LV or ULV depending on your model. If you tow or live somewhere hot, cut that interval by 20%. A $200 service now beats a $4,000 rebuild later every time. Mistake number 4. Ignoring tire pressure and rotation. This one doesn't sound as dramatic as a blown engine, but it costs Ford owners more money over time than almost anything on this list. A 2020 Explorer owner complained about a vibration at highway speed and a TPMS light that kept flickering on and off. Turned out, two tires were underinflated by nearly 10 psi, and none of the tires had ever been rotated. The front pair was worn down to the cords, while the rears still had half their tread left. That's a full set of tires gone roughly 20,000 miles early. Over $800 wasted. Underinflated tires run hotter, wear unevenly, and increase your stopping distance, which matters a lot on a heavier vehicle like an Explorer or an F-150. Check pressure monthly when the tires are cold and rotate every 5 to 7,000 miles, ideally at your oil change, so it becomes automatic. It costs you nothing but 5 minutes and saves you a full tire replacement. Mistake number 5. Neglecting the PCV valve. Small part, big consequences. A 2017 Ford Fusion with a 2.0 EcoBoost was burning almost a quart of oil every 1,500 miles. Everyone assumed worn piston rings. Compression tests came back perfect. The actual problem was a PCV valve stuck shut with carbon, a $15 part and a 10-minute fix. When the PCV sticks open, oil vapor gets pulled into the intake, coating your valves and fouling your plugs. When it sticks closed, pressure builds inside the engine and blows out seals and gaskets. Either way, you lose. Replace the PCV valve every 40,000 miles. If you really want to protect a turbo engine, add an oil catch can between the valve and the intake. It traps the oily mist before it ever reaches your valves. Mistake number 6. Cheap or mismatched spark plugs. This is the saved $40, spent $500 mistake. A 2018 F-150 owner swapped his Motorcraft plugs for a cheaper off-brand Iridium plug he found online. Wrong heat range, wrong tip design. 2 months later, the truck was hesitating under boost. When the shop pulled the plugs, 3 had cracked ceramic insulators, and 1 ignition coil had already fried from arcing. What started as a $40 savings turned into a $480 repair. Ford tunes ignition timing and coil voltage around specific plug resistance and tip material. Swap that out for something close enough, and you throw the whole system off balance. Stick with Motorcraft, talk to spec, use a thin coat of anti-seize, and replace every 60,000 miles, 40,000 on turbocharged models. Mistake number 7. Dirty air filter and MAF sensor. Sometimes the simplest fix gets missed the longest. The 2015 Ford Edge came in with a check engine light and noticeably worse gas mileage. The owner was convinced it was a fuel injector. The real problem, an air filter packed with debris and a mass airflow sensor coated in grime, both feeding the engine bad data. After a $15 filter and a proper MAF cleaning, mileage jumped from 14 to 20 miles per gallon almost overnight. Check your air filter every 15 to 20,000 miles. Hold it up to a light. If you can't see through it, it's done. Never touch the MAF sensor wire with your fingers and only use MAF-specific cleaner. Avoid oiled aftermarket filters entirely. The oil residue contaminates the sensor and throws off every reading downstream. Mistake number 8. Ignoring cooling fan failures. This is the mistake that gets people because it hides in plain sight. Everything looks fine until you're stuck in traffic. A 2014 Ford Escape ran perfectly on the highway, but started overheating every time it sat in stop-and-go traffic. That's a textbook cooling fan symptom. One fan's relay had failed, and by the time the owner noticed, the heat had already warped the head gasket. A $50 relay became a $2,600 repair. Every 6 months, spin the fan blades by hand with the engine off. They should move freely. Turn on the AC at idle and confirm both fans kick on. If temperature only climbs when you're parked or crawling in traffic, that's your first clue. It's the fan system, not the coolant itself. Mistake number 9. Letting carbon build up on EcoBoost intake valves. Direct injection is great for efficiency and terrible for your intake valves. Unlike older port-injected engines, EcoBoost fuel doesn't wash over the intake valves on its way in, so there's nothing cleaning off the carbon that naturally forms there. Owners who take a lot of short trips, use cheap gas, or shut the engine off before it fully warms up see this the worst. Left unchecked, that carbon layer gets thick enough to choke airflow and cause misfires. Run a quality, top-tier fuel system cleaner every 3,000 to 5,000 miles, and use top-tier gasoline whenever possible. It simply contains more detergent. For engines already caked up, a walnut shell media blast every 60,000 to 80,000 miles restores lost power and typically runs around $250. It's not glamorous, but it's a lot cheaper than the alternative. Mistake number 10. Ignoring a timing chain rattle. This one gets dismissed constantly because it sounds minor, a little rattle on cold start that goes away after a few seconds. That rattle is usually a worn timing chain tensioner, losing oil pressure right after startup, before the pump builds full pressure. It's especially common on older 5.4 Triton, V8S, and has shown up on some EcoBoost variants too. Ignore it long enough and the chain can skip a tooth or, in worse cases, snap entirely, which on an interference engine means bent valves and a very expensive teardown. If you hear a rattle for even a second or two on cold start, get the tensioner inspected. Replacing a tensioner early runs a few $100s. Replacing a timing chain after it's already damaged valves can run well into the thousands. Mistake number 11. Ignoring small fluid leaks. A drop or two under the car doesn't feel urgent? It should. A 2012 Ford Escape came in because the owner suddenly saw smoke under the hood. On the lift, it was obvious the valve cover had been seeping oil for months, dripping straight onto the hot exhaust manifold. That oil slowly baked into carbon and eventually ignited. What started as a $12 gasket problem turned into an engine fire. Slide a piece of cardboard under your car overnight once in a while. The color tells you exactly what's leaking. Track the leak to its actual source. Fluid often drips from the lowest point, but originates somewhere higher up. Caught early. Most gasket repairs run under $200. Ignored, they turn into engine rebuilds. Mistake number 12. Never flushing brake fluid. Brake fluid is hygroscopic. It absorbs moisture from the air every single time that reservoir cap comes off. A 2010 Ford Taurus came in with a soft, spongy brake pedal even after the owner had just replaced the pads and rotors. The fluid tested at roughly half its rated boiling point. Under hard braking, that trapped moisture was boiling and turning into compressible vapor bubbles, which is exactly why the pedal felt soft instead of firm. Flush the brake fluid every 3 years or 36,000 miles using DOT3 or DOT4 depending on your model. Never mix them. Fresh fluid should look clear to light amber. If it's dark brown, it's overdue. Mistake number 13, neglecting the battery and ground straps. This is the mistake nobody thinks to check because it doesn't feel like an engine problem. A Ford Explorer came in misfiring on random cylinders. The owner had already replaced the plugs, the coils, and the MAF sensor, still running rough. The real culprit was a corroded ground strap between the engine block and the chassis, causing unstable voltage that confused the ECU. Cleaning and tightening that $8 strap fixed a problem that 3 expensive parts couldn't. Clean your battery terminals every oil change with a baking soda and water mix, then coat them in dielectric grease. A healthy resting voltage is around 12.6 volts. If you're under 12, it's time for a new battery. Check your ground straps for corrosion too. A weak electrical foundation causes problems that look like they belong somewhere else entirely. Mistake number 14. Ignoring intercooler condensation on EcoBoost engines. This is a mistake most Ford owners have genuinely never heard of, and it's specific to turbocharged EcoBoost models. In cold, humid weather, moisture can condense inside the intercooler piping. Under hard acceleration, that trapped water gets pulled into the cylinders all at once, which can cause a rough stumble, a misfire, or, in rare cases, engine damage from the water not compressing the way air does. Owners describe it as the truck coughing or hesitating hard on a cold, damp morning under boost. Ford issued updates and revised intercooler designs for several EcoBoost models specifically to address this. If you drive a turbocharged Ford in a cold, wet climate and notice a hard stumble on acceleration only on damp mornings, it's worth asking your dealer whether your specific engine had a related service update. Mistake number 15. Ignoring recalls and technical service bulletins. This is the mistake that costs owners money for absolutely no reason, because the fix is usually free. Ford issues recalls and TSBs constantly, covering everything from fuel pump failures to software updates that affect transmission shifting. Owners skip them because they assume it's a hassle, or they never even find out one exists. Then months later, they're paying out of pocket for a repair that would have been free at the dealership. Punch your VIN into the NHTSA recall lookup or Ford's own owner site every few months. It takes 2 minutes, it's completely free, and it can catch a serious issue, like a fuel pump that can stall your truck before it ever becomes your problem. 15 mistakes, but really just one theme. Your Ford gives back exactly what you put into it. Keep the fluids clean, the small parts fresh, and don't wait for a warning light to tell you what a 5-minute check already would have. If this helped you catch something on your own Ford, hit subscribe. We're covering a new model-specific guide every week. Know your Ford.